Welcome back to 2190, everyone. I am Zainab Allen, and I am here joined by Zainab Johnson, an amazing comedian. Zainab, how are you doing today? What's going on? How are you feeling
I feel
today?
fantastic.
I, I love that. And Zainab, just let me hop right into it. I've been seeing your stand up on my timeline for months now, and I finally got a chance to see you live this week at Bounty's Come Clean Comedy Experience. Now, I didn't know that you came from basketball to comedy, okay? And it kind of makes sense because when we first met, I couldn't help but realize like how beautiful this tall, gorgeous woman is towering over me. I want to know when you did that transition, and I believe you were a teacher in between. When was the first time that you actually accepted that you were funny?
It was a really long transition between me playing basketball. I played basketball in high school. I started comedy in my 20s, in my late 20s, like kind of mid late 20s. So it was a nice period. But I realized that I was funny the first time I got on stage to do stand up. It was surprising to me because I definitely didn't think I was going to be funny, but I got the confirmation of it. The first thing I said, people laughed. The second thing I said, people laughed. The third thing I said, people laughed. And then after that, I would say that it wasn't just the confirmation, but I had the confidence in knowing that I was funny.
So I'm a big fan of Lifting While You Climb, right? And there were two other Black women who opened for you the night that I saw you. And I'm not sure how often you get to perform solely with other Black women, but when you do, what are some of the most important, takeaways for you in those moments?
You're right. It is not often that I'm on a show with solely Black women, but I don't know if I necessarily have a takeaway, but I definitely sort of bask in the moment and just enjoy it. Like it's definitely a show that before I get on stage, I'm also just like a willing participating and like ecstatic like audience member. Like I'm there to watch.
I love that. I love that. And now, moving forward, do you think that you would put more women, if you have the ability to? I don't really know what the ins and outs are of the comedy
Yeah.
world, but would you be able to bring more Black women up with you?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever I am bringing an opener, for the most part, I have tiers. And at the top of my tier, at the top of my pyramid is always a Black woman. And then I go to a woman of color. And then I probably go to a Black man. And then I go to like a white woman. And then I go to a white, you know what I'm saying? Basically, white guy's going to be the last people that I choose. But whenever I bring openers, whenever I bring people, I bring people. I love bringing Black women on the show. One of my very close friends, funny friend, Sydney Washington, she's so funny. I bring her whenever I can afford it. And I also like not framing it as that because I think that's sort of the issue. When we put on shows and we say this is a ladies show, this is a urban show. No, this is a comedy show. This is a comedy show, and you don't need to know our makeup to know uh, beforehand if we're funny. I like for people after the show to be like, "Oh my God!" and like, two, three different Black women did really different experiences and so funny. Like, oh, girl, I thought you was crazy. I thought you remind me of myself. Like, I love stuff like that.
I love that. Yeah. I will say that I didn't realize until afterwards that it was three Black women. So I would say the same thing. That stepping away from it, I was like, oh wow, there were
Yeah.
it was three Black women. I love that. So I get what you're saying completely. Now, before we get into anything else, I do want to say that along with us sharing, similar names, I too am a Black Muslim woman. So
Hmm.
assalamu alaikum, sis.
Well, oh, alaikum
Um,
assalam.
Yes, and I just wanted to share this. I just converted last April, and when I
Mm.
first joined the fold, I was really overwhelmed because I wasn't ready to cover up yet. And every Muslim that I saw, like on my timeline, on Pinterest or whatever, everybody was a hijabi, and I wasn't really ready to let go of this part of who I am, right?
Hmm.
And one day, the algorithm was algorithming as it does, and a clip from your Amazon Prime series Hijabs Off came on my timeline, and
Hmm.
long story short, seeing you gave me inspiration to be authentically myself, even as a Muslim woman. So I want to thank you for that. This was probably a year and some change ago that I first saw you on my timeline.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that the intersectionality between being a woman, a black woman, and a woman, a black person, and a Muslim is super tough, right?
Mhm.
So I want to know how you've been able to navigate that and still be authentically as you are, even as you grew into adulthood.
Well, first, let me say, mashallah, like that's wonderful that reverted. I think that a joke that didn't make the special was I was like, I'm a black Muslim, I'm a black Muslim woman. My parents just wanted me to be discriminated against, right? Like, I think that was like one of my jokes. I like to call things out like immediately. Um, I the only thing that I knew to do, Zaina, when I started doing stand up was to try to tap into what is like specifically and most authentically me. And in doing that and sharing that, the response that I've gotten from so many different women, black, non black, all over the world, is like, thank you. You've helped me feel seen. And so for that alone, I am immensely grateful. And it will be the motivation that pushes me to continue to do it.
Absolutely. I love that. And speaking of, being authentically yourself, especially in comedy, you often talk about the Haram police, right? Which is interesting because even aside from fashion, I'm sure many people will believe a Muslim woman doing stand-up comedy within itself is haram. So
Mhm.
I want to know, have you faced any backlash in that specific sector when you first started? Like, was it intimidating to start incorporating religion into your jokes, or was that an easy process for you?
To be very honest with you, incorporating religion into my jokes, or my faith rather, it was liberating. It was liberating. I in more serious conversations, I am often talking about how there's this narrative in the world about Muslims, right? And I grew up seeing it and experiencing it and being very confused, like, oh, this isn't my experience, and this isn't the experience of the people that I encounter or that I'm around. And so, if I have the opportunity, if I have any platform, I'm going to try my best to. Um, have some input, in that narrative. And so, yes, I absolutely do get some pushback, and I understand why. Mostly the response is always celebratory, but I don't take for granted certain people who, if we set aside trolls, if we set aside people who are just trying to elicit a reaction from negativity. But when I think about some people who are really protective of the religion or really protective of Islam, I do understand why, because the narrative has been so skewed and so negative that I understand when it is being put out there, people are kind of like, but wait, let's just make sure it's right. I am here to say it may not be all the way right, but I am not perfect and I still love it. And this is a journey, and just come with me on this journey.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's I think that's why I was able to draw myself a little bit more to you when I first saw your stand up, because it felt like I'm a really big proponent. Like, ever since I reverted, I've been a really big proponent of still being yourself and
Yeah.
still being Muslim, right? And
Yeah.
even before I reverted, I've always said that Black women should be allowed to be diverse in who they are, no matter what they are. Like, they can still be a businesswoman. They can still go to the club, on Saturday evening, go to church or whatever on Sunday, enjoy cooking and still enjoy watching, I don't know, reality TV, watching the basketball wives. So
Yeah.
I love that we're still who we are.
Yeah, and I think this is a time in the world where we are celebrating diversity, and I don't mean diversity like just different ethnic backgrounds. I mean really allowing people to tap into what makes them different versus what makes them the same. And when we tap into like, oh, I think this makes me different, you realize how many people are the same as you. I got on stage, like, I'm not seeing any Muslim comics. I'm not seeing any black girl Muslim comics. This is different about me. And then a gang of girls was like, hey, girl, we the same. And I was like, oh my God, you know?
I love it. I love it. And you joked about your childhood growing up, and first of all, you're a survivor because I could not imagine being one of 13 children,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And woo, again, you're a survivor. But and your mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
And I want to know, like, do you think that her example of being a Muslim woman has helped you grow into who you are today? Just in general, even if it's outside of the faith.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I was about to say I'm a survivor. My mom, my mother is the survivor. Um, but yeah, I think that she is a phenomenal example. And she definitely was the constant example that I had because, as we're talking about, I didn't see it on TV. I didn't see it in the images, in media images. And it wasn't an abundance of it. When I went to school, oftentimes I was the only one or maybe one of two. And so my mom was always the first and last and most constant example for me. It's funny, really funny that you asked me this today because the other day I texted my mom and I was like, I really like thank you because one of the best gifts you've ever given me in my life is Islam. And I know she probably thought that came out of nowhere, but sometimes when I am thinking and praying and reflecting, I am really grateful that she birthed Muslim children and taught us Islam.
Oh, I love this. That warms my heart so much. That really does. And,
She-
you know,
she's gonna be like,
uh,
"Oh, Zainab." Ugh.
and speaking of moms, you and Bounty have partnered to create content that spotlights Black moms and their need to keep the house clean. And as
Mhm.
someone who also has a Black mother, I feel like I inherited some cleaning things into my adulthood that I absolutely could not stand. Like I
Okay.
hated my mom for it when I was a kid, right? But I grew them in, like I cleaned my house the way that my mom cleans the house. She would tell me to get right in between the corner, right behind the toilet sometimes, and I'm like, when I was 13, I'm like, well, why? Nobody's gonna look at that. And now I'm in
Mhm.
my I'm in my bathroom, hands and knees, scrubbing behind the toilet. So I
Mhm.
want to know, what are some things that you took into your own home that you inherited from your mother's means of clean?
A big thing, like a pet peeve for my mom, is when she had us clean. If she had us mop, which it's like a kid is never going to be good at mopping. I'm just sorry. And this is when we was using the old school mop. This was before like the jets and my mom. She would be like, if you mop my floor with dirty mop water, if you like, and so now I have a thing about like water being I don't know. Like, I guess I have a thing about the water being fresh when I mop the floor. Um, Also, my mom used to say, if you clean the dishes as you cook, you won't have a pile of dishes, um, like waiting for you. And so now that's kind of like a thing that I do. I think those are like the two things that she was pretty anal about. And then everything else. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest with you, Zaina. My mom, the most consistent thing I feel like she said to us was, "Do it again," because anytime we would clean, it would take us 3 or 4 tries. She would have to send us back to do it again, and then if she got frustrated, she would be like, "See, you want something done right, you got to do it yourself," and then she would end up cleaning.
That is hilarious because you literally just said that living on our own, we think that we have these singular experiences. But Zainab, when I tell you, my mom would do the same exact thing she would make me do it 3 or 4 times if I got it wrong the first time. Anything, any task.
Yeah.
She would go back and check it like, no, this isn't clean. You got to do it again.
Hmm.
No, this isn't clean. Got to do it again. I'd be like, Mom, like, I just want to go outside. I want to with my friends.
And
Why we got to do this?
you know what? We never get it. It's like it should just translate like if we do it the first time, then but now I'm not a mom. I'm an auntie. I'm not a mom yet, but I watch my nieces and nephews do the same thing. I'm like, now I know you see the dirt still there. I know you see it. So go get another paper towel. And they're like, and it's like, that it's there. I'm gonna see it. So why are we wasting time? But I don't know. I think it's just something that adults have and kids, have.
Yeah, that has to be it. But before we end, I do want to ask, what is up next for Zainab Johnson?
Right now, I am about to film the fourth and final season of Upload, which is a Prime original comedy. I am touring right now. I'm working on my next hour. And yeah, I have some projects in development. So, everybody should just stay tuned because it's only up from here.
Absolutely. We'd love to
Of
see it. Well, thank you so much, Zainab, for your
course.
time. And I hope that we get to talk to you again here on 2190 Live.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This was a pleasure, Zainab, talking to you. And then it's so weird to talk to somebody who has almost my exact name, right? It's like,
When I tell you, oh, I agree.
yeah.
That's all I'm
So
going to say. I agree.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.